Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Cam, and it's time for the Movie Nerds Club to assemble yet again. This time around, we're going to be ranking our top 5 favorite Best Picture winners from the Academy Awards. I have a very complex relationship with the Oscars. I used to love them, but over the past few years, I have outright hated them and thought that they, largely speaking, just didn't matter. My tastes just did not reflect the Oscars' tastes, and I respected that. I think the absolute peak of my, Oscar hatred was in 2018, when people were just going crazy about how Green Book won and cinema took back 10 steps or something like that. A largely innocuous movie that looked like Driving Miss Daisy but in reverse somehow set movies back 50 years. This cartoon logic makes sense to some people, but over the past couple of years, my Oscar stance has softened slightly. I say slightly because I make fun of the Oscars a lot. See my many references where I'm like, reason number, imaginably large number, as to why I don't trust award shows. I am never going to trust the Oscars again. But I respect the concept rather than the show itself. And when compiling this list, I have resigned myself to saying, they've gotten some things right at least. But I gotta say, compiling this list was probably one of the hardest lists I've ever had to do for this series. Because there are so many amazing movies that won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. And narrowing it down to 5 was just pulling my hair out levels of stress. My system for doing this was taking one Best Picture winner from every decade of the Oscars, 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on, and then reducing them down to 10, and then to 5. My honorable mentions are the result of the ones that didn't make the list. But please keep in mind that whether it's an honorable mention or on the actual list, I love these movies, and I think that they are just top tier. My honorable mentions are It Happened One Night, Amadeus, Schindler's List, The King's Speech, and Parasite. To my fellow Movie Nerds Club peeps out there, please do not release the hounds on me, Mr. Burns style, for not having Parasite on the main list. I love the movie, I thought it was great, but there are just 5 more movies that I liked more than it. Number 5. The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. The Return of the King is just an epic in every sense of the imagination. Just from the effects, to the battles, to even the smaller moments. There is a lot of small moments in this movie that are just fantastic. I've seen a lot of complaints that this movie is too long because of the multiple endings or the other storylines like the stuff with Lord Denethor, or Aragorn going after and finding the Oathbreakers, and so on and so forth. But I don't care. I think everything in this movie works, and I love the multiple endings. They tie off everything together and give each character a satisfying end to their story. I was honestly shocked when I was looking up movies for this list, and I saw Return of the King. I'm like, oh yeah, that did win. That was a good choice. Because for the longest time, the Lord of the Rings books were said to be unfilmable. Well, Peter Jackson basically just looked at these people and said, never tell me the odds. A couple of my favorite moments in this movie, and honestly there are too many to mention, but some of my favorites include Frodo being literally in the mountain and Sam just let it go, let it go! And Frodo is like, no. The ring is mine. And then he pops it on, and Sam's like, no! Excellent stuff. Aragorn releasing the Oathbreakers after he kind of teases, or Gimli teases, hey, we should use these guys more often. And the head of the Oathbreakers is like, you gave us your word. And Aragorn finally closing off that storyline by saying, I hold your oaths fulfilled. Go in peace. And the Oathbreakers just go away. Ooh. I just got goosebumps. From Aragorn finally being crowned the King of Man, and just everyone bowing to him, from the elves to the dwarfs and everything in between, and then getting to the hobbits. Sam, Frodo, Merry, and Pippin. And they all bow, and then Aragorn just straight up says, "My friends, bow to no one." And everyone in Minas Tirith bows to them. I'm getting even more goosebumps. I could talk about this movie for ages, and I will one day, but for right now, this movie's just awesome. Go see it if somehow you haven't. Number 4, BenHur. This is a movie that I will be talking about in the AFI project. It's number 100, and I am closing in on that number with Murder in My Eyes. But for right now, let's talk about BenHur, because this has gotta be the greatest faith-based movie ever made. Or at least in the conversation of, because the original 10 Commandments and the Prince of Egypt also exist. But again, this is an epic in every sense of the word. I could just leave a gif of the chariot race and just call it a day, but the chariot race is just a miracle. How this was filmed, I have no idea, but it's some of the greatest, action filming you could ever hope to see. And honestly, more action directors should study this to see how to stage everything, to film everything, and just so on and so forth. Charlton Heston is just brilliant as Judah Ben-Hur, going from this super rich guy to just a slave in every sense of the word, and trying to find his family who are on this leper colony. Judah Ben-Hur goes through every stage of hell twice of, and Charlton Heston nails it every time. This is a faith-based movie, but it doesn't throw it in your face that this is a faith-based movie. You do see Jesus of Nazareth, but only the back of his head and maybe his feet. But the movie does a good job of showing, hey, that's Jesus. I say this point not to be dissuasive, but just as a word of warning. This movie is 3.5 hours long, so be prepared to sit through a lot. There is an intermission and an opening and closing, there's an entr'acte and a closing act. But this movie is still 3.5 hours long, so be prepared. But if you do watch it, you will be thoroughly blown away. Number 3, Lawrence of Arabia. This is my number 1 British movie ever made, and I've already reviewed this movie for the AFI project. I'm honestly running out of things to talk about it. Beautiful cinematography, amazing music, Peter O'Toole doing a career-defining performance. I'm honestly running out of things to say about it. If you haven't seen it, see it. It's one of the all-time greats. Number 2, The Godfather. I should say up front that number 2 and number 1 were just so supremely hard to rank. But I will justify my number 1 when I get there. But as far as my number 2, it is The Godfather. And I think in every sense of the word, when people say this is the greatest American movie ever made, I won't argue with them because I think they're right in many instances. Marlon Brando, despite his laziness around this time, gives a fantastic performance. Look at how they massacred my boy and all that. But The Godfather, in many ways, launched several careers, including Al Pacino, James Caan, Robert Duvall, and so on and so forth. And they were in other movies before The Godfather, but it was The Godfather that really established their fulcrum points in their career. I've reviewed this movie for the AFI project, so if you want to hear my thoughts more in depth, please check that video out. But as far as The Godfather goes, it's a near perfect movie. If you haven't seen it, go see it. And number 1, Casablanca. I'm not going to lie. I had an incredibly difficult time choosing between Godfather and Casablanca. In my opinion, The Godfather is a near perfect film. But I think Casablanca is absolutely perfect in every way. The acting is absolutely stellar, especially from Ingrid Bergman and Humphrey Bogart, who give career best performances here. The message of sometimes you gotta fight the battles that are presented for you is subtle but also present throughout, and done in a very tactful manner. And this movie has, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful endings of all time. When Humphrey Bogart sends Ingrid Bergman out of Casablanca, he basically tells her, will always have Paris, meaning that I love you, but I gotta stay. And it all caps off with Humphrey Bogart and Claude Rains walking off into the distance and saying, I think this is the start of a beautiful friendship. I have already covered this for the AFI project, so like I said, please check that out for more in-depth thoughts. But simple answer, this movie is just perfect in every way. If you haven't seen it, please do yourself a favor and go watch it. But that is all for me, guys. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Please be sure to check out my fellow movie nerds in the Movie Nerds Club. Their videos will be linked in the description of this video. I'm a fan of all of these creators, so please give them a hand, will ya? And if you'd like to check out more of my Movie Nerds Club videos, there will be a playlist link in the eye in the right-hand corner. And as far as this channel goes, tomorrow, being Sunday, I will be dropping my very first reaction to the Studio Ghibli film, Whisper of the Heart. But if you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and if you like this video and you want to see more like it, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to allow notifications. That way, when a new video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. My name is Ryan Cam, and I'll see you in the next one.